To say something very briefly about Judith Butler and political activity, we need to understand some of her central concepts. One is performativity. It comes from J.L. Austin's language theories, and also from Derrida, where performativity is when you are speaking or when you are performing, the act of performing is realizing what you want to perform. So it's a kind of a circular motion in a sense, and there's no real essence or beginning in your actions. There's no essence that you or nature that you are going towards as a goal, but rather the act of performing is creating what you want to be created. So that is a central idea in Butler's thinking, and she develops it in the early 1990s in her perhaps most famous book, Gender Trouble, where she discusses gender and sexuality and the relation between the two. That is not the perspective, or that not the focus on Butler in this course. What is the focus is rather her view of political activity, which she develops in the book that you are reading, the Assembly, Public Assembly. And political action there is, we need to understand her, what she thinks of discourse, or what we find ourselves in. In Arendt's word concepts, it might be called the world or the political. For Butler, there is only the discourse or the political. There's nothing outside of it. What you have is discourse. And within discourse you have actions that in themselves shapes the discourse. They decide the discourse, what counts as knowledge, what counts as nature, natural, what counts as an origin. Everything is constituted through performativity. So there are no things that are without history. There are no origins in that sense. Origins are created by the actions that we are doing, and when the discourse allows something to be an origin, then that rules how we value things. So in a sense you could say that, well, there's no room or space for change in, or you cannot at least guide change in Butler's thinking, and there's a truth in that, that there is no possibility of exactly knowing how your actions will affect the discourse, but you can still act, because by acting you're kind of putting things up in your chain, in your narrative. So when you are constituting yourself through act, or when actions are constituting you rather, when you are asked to give account of yourself, you can only give account of your actions. So actions and your self-identity are related in that way. But it's not as with Simone de Beauvoir or within existentialism that you decide upon something and your decision is what constitutes yourself. So your choosing makes up your authentic self. It's rather that you find yourself acting. You find yourself within a discourse where you are constituted as a self, not from within, but from relations with everything else around you. So in many ways, Butler develops later in her thinking what is called a relational ontology, where there's no essence, but there is some sense of an ontology. There is a being, but you become only through relations with the outside. This means that the outside and the infrastructure of the discourse or the political is essential in order for us to be able to move. So technology, the architecture of a society, of a city, of a town is essential features if there is to be political action. And you notice that in your book, where even the sidewalk is important. There needs to be somewhere where citizens can move. The square is central if there is to be a space for political action. So it's not that you can decide, now I want to protest, now I want to have a change, and then simply do it. You are bound, or you are actually affected, strongly affected, according to Butler, by the simple things as sidewalks and squares and food, and you do not find yourself as a fully made, constituted, autonomous individual that have an opinion that you want to express, and then you find someone else, autonomous individual, that is expressing a similar or an opposite view. You are both within a discourse that has already decided certain things for you, and within that we act. So when it comes to political actions, what Butler is developing, and which was the lectures that was leading up to this book, is an idea of non-violence. Because non-violence wants to uphold the life of the other. She agrees with Hannah Arendt here in terms of annihilation, while Hannah Arendt is arguing that if you kill a people group, or a group of people or a culture, annihilate them, something of the commonwealth of humanity will be destroyed. So you destroy something of your own world. Butler takes this to the single person. The fact that if you kill someone else, you will have killed something or murdered something of yourself as well, because you are constituted by the other. If you kill the other, then you kill something in yourself. So there's the only option here for activity is one of non-violence, because if you use violence against someone else, according to Butler, then you will use violence on yourself. So you will destroy yourself by the use of violence on the other. She doesn't even admit, as you notice, she doesn't even admit self-defense. Because what is self-defense in the end? The self-defense is a way of saying who counts as someone that I can allow myself to defend with violence. It becomes an in-group, because self-defense very rarely only means yourself, your own particular body. Self-defense often means my own family, my own extended family, my own village, my own town, my own political party, or my own country. So self-defense is a way of defending an idea of us against them. And the them is the one who is not quite like me, not part of my family, not part of my community, my city, my political party, not part of my country. And in that way, the one you can use violence against is the one who is not like you. So the argument or the logic of self-defense very quickly turns out to be a territorial and someone that you can assimilate with, someone that looks or is similar to you, that you identify with as the same as you. And in that way, self-defense has the same logic as racism, as other isms that are based on exclusion. So everything, all political action needs to strive for non-violence if it is to uphold the existence of yourself as well as the other. Which is why, for example, Butler is writing about in other texts and mentioning here as well about Occupy Wall Street and the Occupy movement, which is basically, at least in its original idea, a non-violent idea, and an idea of taking over or occupying the public space around particular areas. So you're trying to do something different with the public space that is already there, and by that way change the meaning of what the discourse is about. So in no way do Butler say that we are kind of autonomous liberal subjects that are able to change by sheer will our discourse. But we find ourselves in a discourse, we can perform, or certain acts have a performative power, and in unison there might be a change of discourse. And the reason why there is a room for change in Butler is that we can confirm the power structures in the discourse as much as we like, but there will always be a certain degree of failure in the power actions in a discourse. So with that idea of there will never be a completely solid discourse. It will always maintain certain elements of failure. And in the space of these failures, there is room for change. And in that way, Butler is saying that it's worth acting. You will be constituted by the other. You will be affecting the other. You do not know exactly how this change will occur, exactly how this change will be, but it's worth acting. And when you act, you need to act in non-violence in order to maintain not simply the life of the other, but your own life as well.